Back on Division 2 in 2025. I can say I did not see that coming, but I am happy that they are releasing new content for this game still. But with the release of Battle of Brooklyn, there is a lot of returning players and some new players. And with that, I wanted to make a build video showing off what, in my opinion, one of the best solo builds in the game. This is a jack of all trades build, a lot of DPS with your weapon, good skills, and decent survivability. So in the beginning of this video, I will just show you the base of the build, what mods I use, my stats for crit chance and damage, and then after that I'll break down every brand set, every gear set, what I'm doing with the talents, and then at the end, if you're still here, I will show you the best way to get all of this gear in the quickest way possible. First things first, we got to look at the weapon for the build, and that is the capacitor. It is the main feature of the entire build, and it makes putting a skill build together also a good DPS build. I am running the capacitor, the harmony, and the orbit as my main twos. You can see I only use my expertise level on the capacitor. I don't really use the other two. If you rock this build, you probably won't use them either, but these two are pretty good backups for the capacitor. The mask is Fenris Group AB. I'm running 3-piece Umbra initiative, and then with the Ninja Bike Messenger backpack, I'm running 4-piece of it, so 2-piece is counting for Fenris and 2-piece for Brazos. And the Brazos is the most common holster I think that you'll see in this game, the Picaros holster. That is my stats. Here are my attributes and mods. You can see there, running crit chance, crit damage on everything, including the gloves, all of it. Wherever we can put crit chance and crit damage, we are running it. And then my stats, we are at 1.2 million armor, and for the offensive stats we are at 59% critical hit chance, which is 1% shy of the cap, which is 60%, and 135% critical hit damage. Now with the Umbra's initiative, once the talent procs all the way up, you'll see that go up to about 250%, so dang near double it. Let's get into the talent of the build and what makes it work. You saw the stats. I'm at 135% crit chance and I'm at 700 RPM. Now that is only half of what we're actually doing. Alright, so let me show you again. Capacitor, RPM 700. It's decent. It's kind of slow. It's on the slower end of RPM for weapons in this game, but that will change. And then critical hit damage is at 135%. Now with the Umbra's initiative, let's just read from the shadows into the light. From the shadows, you gain 10 stacks every second up to 50 stacks, and each stack gives you additional 1.2% critical hit damage and 0.4% RPM. That's just from the shadows of this two-part talent. So from the shadows, 50 stacks, 1.2% critical hit damage, that's 60% additional critical hit damage, and then 0.4% RPM added up with the 50 stacks is going to be 20% RPM. But with the chest piece we're rocking, it doubles that. It's still going to take you 5 seconds to get to max stacks, but you're going to get 20 stacks per second, and it's going to stack up to 100, which will then just double the totals I just said. So instead of 60% critical hit damage, you'll be up to 120%. Instead of 20% RPM, you'll be up to 40%. And I can show you what that looks like. You see the Into the Light was maxed out because I was walking around. So we're at max Into the Shadows. This is me in cover, so Into the Shadows will not proc. 382,000. Let's get in field. So about 3.5 million DPS. Alright. Decent. Let's go ahead and get that extra bullet in there. Now let's get off cover so we can use our Into the Shadows here. Go ahead and reload. And 4.4 DPS with no headshots. Of course, that will go up with headshots. You go for headshots, you'll miss. Either way, showing you that it increases your DPS drastically. You can see, let's see, when I'm shooting here, the RPM is pretty slow. Then I back up off cover, and you can see how much it increases with the Into the Shadows taking effect. So, again, standard RPM of the capacitor, 700 rounds per minute. Standard critical hit damage of the build mixed with the shade level, 135% critical hit damage. I immediately stand up. Go to inventory. Our RPM is at 970, almost 1,000 RPM now, and our critical hit damage is at 250.2%. So it almost doubles the capability of the gun itself. So this is all before you even incorporate the skills. So this weapon is going to do good damage. At the top of your stacks, you're going to be doing about 700,000 damage per bullet. That's going to melt almost anything in the open world pretty immediately, including the bosses. This skill build, this tier 6 skill build, ultimately still has a DPS build level damage with the capacitor. Now with that, we also have survivability. So that is the first part of Umbra's initiative. The second part of Umbra's initiative is Into the Light. That is going to start counting stacks when you get off cover. So when you stand up to use from the shadows and start shooting your gun and you back up from cover, it's going to start consuming the Into the Shadows for your damage, but it's going to start giving you Into the Light for health. And what that's going to do is it's every second gives you 10 up to 50. And this one will only go up to 50 because we're not rocking the backpack, so we're not going to get double the stacks, double the total like we are with the chest piece for damage. But it's okay because with 50 stacks at 0.8%, you're still going to get 40% of your armor back, which is really good. It gives you really good survivability. So let me take some damage here and show you Into the Light. So, we lost most of our health there. We're going to go ahead and get on the wall here in cover, and you can see 40% of our overall armor is going to come back to us. So, it doesn't matter where you're at. If you have lost all your armor, if you've lost half your armor, you can get 40% back of all the armor you have equipped to your gear. It's really good for survivability because you're just going to sit here and do this motion of weaving in and out of cover to fire, take cover to reload, take cover to lay down your skills, call out your skills, go ahead and fire. And without really thinking about it, you're going to be constantly healing yourself, just going back and forth. So that's Umbra's initiative. That's how it works. It's almost doubling the damage capability of the weapon, as well as constantly healing you without you really thinking about it. As long as you do that weave in and out of cover, you're going to survive pretty easily. And so with only 2 blue cores, we still have good survivability. 1.2 million armor in this game is not a lot of armor, but it's enough to do most of the content in the game without really having to worry about getting one shot. The Umbra's initiatives, I didn't even read off the scales for the 2 and 3 piece set. Get another 15% crit chance, and then another 30% reload speed. So we have 60% reload speed. And if you look at the capacitor's reload time here, it's 1.1 seconds. There's very little downtime for reloading. And it's pretty nice because it kind of has a smaller magazine at 41 meg. A lot of the best weapons in the game are 50 plus. Luckily, the reload time isn't that bad. So that's Umbra's initiative. And again, with the Ninja Bike Messenger backpack, we only have 3 pieces, but it counts as 4 because that's the talent of the Ninja Bike. It just gives you 1 extra brand set or gear set bonus. It's one of the best exotic pieces of gear in the game. We'll go on to our mask here. We got the Fenner's Group mask. It gives us an additional 10% assault rifle damage, another 30% reload speed, and then the Picaro's holster. I think I said before, it's one of the most common holsters in the game. It's a named holster from the Brazos set. We'll get some skill haste. We'll get our drone and our turret back a lot faster, and then that most importantly is the +1 skill tier so that we can get 6 out of 6. Again, 4 from the gear, 1 from this Brazos bonus, and then 1 from the Tactician set. That's just the base capabilities of the build before you get into the global modifiers. And then when you get into the global modifiers, you can really boost your critical hit chance above 60%. If you're running the assault link, you can get up to 100 with ease. If you're on the tech link, you can boost your skill damage significantly. On average, your drone is going to be hitting for somewhere in the 60 to 80 range, which is not a lot, but it's enough to kill the rushers. It's enough to distract the enemies, and using it with the capacitor skill, which gives you additional 60% skill damage when you're at 40 stacks, you're going to be doing a good amount of damage with your drone and your turret. But the most important part about your drone and turret, besides the ability to kill the rushers, is if you're playing with Fog of War on, or just in the open world in general, they have so much health. The enemies have a hard time killing the drone and the turret, and it's almost like you're playing with 2 players. This is one of my favorite solo builds in the game because the turret and the drone are almost like 2 teammates for you. They're constantly distracting the enemies. The enemies are constantly shooting at them, which means they're not shooting at you. And the turret has 5.5 million health, and the drone has 2.7 million health. They both have more health than you, and they're constantly taking the aggro from the enemies. It's like having 2 very weak teammates that are very tanky, and they're going to take a lot of attention away from the enemies, so that's nice. The last part of this, we talked about the talent of the capacitor, but if you don't know, the best part about the capacitor is the part at the bottom that says for each skill tier you have, you gain an additional 7.5% weapon damage. So that's nice because a normal red core attribute is 15%. So I have 2 of them. I get the backpack has all 3, but I have 2 red cores, so I have 30% weapon damage from that. But I'm also basically getting an additional 3 weapon cores alone from the talent of the capacitor because I have skill tier 6. And so 6 skill tiers with the capacitor's talent is basically like having 3 additional weapon damage core attributes. A normal DPS like glass cannon build is going to have 6 of these equipped, and I have basically 5 of them them equipped before you incorporate the talents and the attribute of weapon damage from the holster. So this is where my skill build is also a DPS build, and then with the 2 blue core attributes with an additional 170,000 armor, put me up to 1.2. It's great survivability. The talents work together well, the skills work together well, and your survivability is great going in and out of cover. That's pretty much the build. It's very good in the open world activities. You can pretty much do any mission in the game with this one, and it's good with the team too. This is mainly what I use for solo, but I do a lot of the Shepherd missions and join people on the new missions in the Battle for Brooklyn, and it performs just fine there too. Most of the time you'll be doing the most damage on the team just because your drone and your turret are constantly shooting, and your capacitor is also putting up very comparable damage numbers to a normal DPS build. And you're not dying as much. I spend a lot of time reviving teammates who have 6 out of 6 core attributes equipped. You know, they're putting out a lot of damage, but they're one shot half the time. So this just gives you some leeway to make some mistakes. It gives you some leeway to get flanked, or maybe you miss a rusher that's coming around, or maybe like 2 or 3 of the cleaner rushers with the shields are coming at you. You know, there's just more survivability with it, and your drone and your turret will be constantly watching your back. That's the main part of the build I wanted to go through. If you're still here, I will show you the best way, the most efficient way to get this gear. If you don't have the capacitor, if you don't have the ninja bike or the gear sets or brand sets, the most efficient way to do this is easily the summit. The summit is up in the top right corner of the map. Half the reason the summit is the best place to get all of this gear is because the capacitor, if you've never gotten it before, is tied to the summit challenge rewards. So there's tactical and ascent challenge rewards. You just open up the map and tab over to challenges. You have to select these, go through the summit, complete them. I believe when you complete 9, the capacitor is a guaranteed drop. I can't say for sure because it's not there for me anymore because I have already completed the summit challenges, but it's somewhere in the 9 to 13 range. I can't quite remember right now because it has been a while since I got it, but this is where you go. Just do your challenges. You'll be able to scroll here on the right. You'll see where the capacitor is if you've never earned it before, and it's a guaranteed drop. So you do 9 to 13 challenges, whatever it is, and then once the capacitor drops, you'll be able to have what is easily the most important part of this build. But another reason that the summit is a really good place to do this is because you can change the targeted loot. And so while you're here grinding for the capacitor, make sure you come in here. Umbra's initiatives in here. You can do your Fenris group, you can do the Brazos for the holster, or you can just do the holster or mask. And then if you already have the capacitor, you can come in here and just select assault rifles. But if you have never earned the capacitor, the summit is the place to do it, and then you can do your targeted loot. Now, if you have already gotten the capacitor before and you don't have that guaranteed drop there anymore, like I don't, the best way to get all this gear is to go into the countdown and just do the targeted loot for the backpacks, for Umbra's initiative, for Brazos, whatever it is, because there's so many drops from enemies. And at the end of the mission, you can open a chest and then you'll have your targeted loot in there, as well as the big chest at the end with the final mission. So I wouldn't do the summit if you've already unlocked the capacitor before. I'd only do the summit if you've never unlocked the capacitor before. If you already have, go to the countdown. I think most people know about the countdown, but if you're at this part of the video, you might be wondering how you get some of this stuff. And then you can double dip with the targeted loot, and then the countdown currency, you can come over here to the countdown vendor and buy name caches, buy exotic caches, whatever it is to help you get some of this gear. One thing I want to say about countdown is do not bring the turret and the drone into countdown. Don't bring the turret and the drone into anything that has a hunter, because the hunters will hack it, and that turret and drone, when it's turned on you, it still has 5 million health and 2.7 million health. So they're hard to kill, and they still do ridiculous damage to you. So they do the exact same amount of damage that they do to the enemies, except for you don't have the health the enemies do. So if you bring it into countdown, your teammates are all going to hate you because you all are going to get wiped by a drone that you should never brought in. That's the one little caveat to this I wanted to say, is do not use it against hunters, because hunters will hack it and then you will die and everyone will dislike you. Countdown is a great place to get this gear, but don't bring this build in the countdown. Now, I didn't mention before, they're not that important to the build. The Harmony is a rifle that basically has a similar setup for what it'll do for you. It's just a little worse than the capacitor. So with the current build I have with skill tier 6, the capacitor is giving 60% damage to my skills and is getting 45% weapon damage back. And then with perfect sync on the Harmony, it says 20%, but then it says it doubles if both buffs are always active, because your drone any turn are constantly doing damage. So with the capacitor, you go from 60% skill damage and 45% weapon damage to the harmony, you go 40% skill damage, 40% weapon damage. It's a good alternative. The orbit is one of the best secondaries in the game, but the only reason I bring these up is because they're tied to PvP, they're tied to conflict and the DZ, especially the DZ vendors. It's one of the easiest ways to get them, but you have to check the DZ vendors like every day if you don't want to go in the DZ and farm for it. And then targeted loot for rifles and pistols has to be in one of the 3 DZs to go get these. But if you're doing the countdown, you do not have to go play PvP. You can just come here and name caches, and PvP weapons can drop in name caches that you get from PvE stuff. So you don't have to play PvP to get any of this stuff. It's just going to be easier for the harmony and the orbit. But again, the harmony and orbit, I'd never use these. I never use the orbit, but I only use the harmony if the capacitor runs out of ammo, which rarely happens, but it does happen, especially if you're playing harder content. It's not necessary. You can put any weapon here that you want. It's really not a big a deal. The main shows the capacitor anyway. That is one of the best solo builds I found in this game. It's a lot of fun. You have high survivability. Your skills are doing damage. You'll do damage. But that's all I got for you. That is my build, and I hope you're having fun with Battle of Brooklyn. It's fun to see a lot of people back on this game, and hopefully you guys can make some good builds. Maybe if you have some suggestions for this one, you can put it in the comments down below, but that's all I got for you. So until next time, deuces.